The morning sun crept over the horizon, casting a warm glow on our quiet suburban street. The breeze was mild, carrying with it the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant chirping of birds. It was the kind of day that made you want to linger on the porch with a coffee in hand, savoring the simplicity of life in our little corner of the world. The flag on my porch swung gently with the wind, a cascade of red, white, and blue catching the sunlight. It was the one touch I allowed myself in this manicured, rule-bound neighborhood. It represented the pride I felt for a country that, despite its flaws, was home. It stood for freedom, a concept that seemed increasingly elusive within the confines of the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association. Karen, of course, saw it differently. I'd noticed her prowling the block in her SUV, a self-appointed sentry of suburban standards. Hair coiled tightly like a spring, her eyes scanned the rows of identical houses, searching for infractions with the zeal of a hawk on the hunt. She was the embodiment of the HOA, its bylaws ingrained within her as if they were scripture. The first notice was innocuous enough. A polite reminder slipped into the mailbox, advising me that my flag might be in violation of a regulation I'd never heard of. It was signed, predictably, Karen, HOA President. I had chuckled at the time, imagining her satisfaction in executing such a trivial authority. It seemed harmless, almost comical, in its pettiness. I let it pass, as I did with most of Karen's missives. They were the paper cuts of community life, small irritations that healed quickly and left no scar. Besides, the flag stayed. Gravity kept it firmly in place, and I saw no reason for it to leave. But for Karen, offense festered. It grew from a seedling of indignation into a towering justification for intervention. She would not let it rest, not while there was still breath in her body or ink in her pen. The next escalation arrived with an official letterhead, warning of fines and potential removal of the offending banner. I could picture her, pen in hand, constructing her words with the precision of a military strategist, each sentence a calculated maneuver. It was almost admirable in a way. Almost. Still, I remained unfazed. The flag swayed defiantly, a silent protest against encroaching absurdity. My coffee tasted no less sweet, my mornings no less serene. Then came the morning of the call. The air was still. Time seemed to slow as the flashing lights disrupted our usual calm. The officer approached, his expression balanced on the edge of disbelief and duty. Karen was nearby, her posture a mixture of triumph and self-righteousness. Arms crossed like a queen of the cul-de-sac. The officer spoke, his words a formality, a necessity, rather than an accusation. Too patriotic, Karen had said. An absurdity uttered with the conviction of a believer. It hung in the air, a surreal echo that begged disbelief. I nodded. There was power in silence, a calm acceptance that defied the storm she sought to create. The flag still fluttered, undaunted, as if it knew what Karen never could. That true power lay not in rules and restrictions, but in resilience and quiet defiance. In that moment, I decided the flag would fly longer, its colors more vibrant with each passing day. Karen's victory was fleeting, a whisper against the roar of steadfast peacefulness. The porch was mine, the flag was mine, and so too was my unyielding resolve. The aftermath of the police visit lingered in the air like the smell of burnt toast, unsettling and hard to ignore. The officers had left with barely a nod, having found no substance to Karen's claims. But the neighborhood chatter had only just begun. Karen, with her perpetual scowl etched deeper into her face, was not one to retreat quietly. She had tasted a morsel of power, and now she craved more. Days later, a letter arrived, slipping through the mail slot like a serpent. The HOA's letterhead glared at me from the page, and the words beneath it were no friendlier. In convoluted legalese, it listed a series of infractions. The flag was too large, it said, and therefore an unapproved modification to my property. The paint on my porch was insufficiently muted. My garden was excessively wild, a clear violation of some obscure botanical mandate. Each word was a bullet aimed at my peace. I could almost picture Karen at her kitchen table, pen in hand, crafting these complaints with the precision of a clockmaker. Spreading her gospel of propriety, she became a missionary of malice. It would have been laughable if it weren't so effective. The citations were real, and now they were my burden to bear. Gossip, that insidious creature, slithered through the neighborhood on quicksilver whispers. At the grocery store, in line at the cafe, subtle glances were thrown my way, laden with curiosity and judgment. I felt like a pariah in my own home, a stranger passing through familiar streets. Yet, there was an odd freedom in being the outsider, a rebellious thrill in resisting the arbitrary tyranny that Karen wielded. Karen was a maestro conducting a symphony of disdain. Her audience, our neighbors, played their part well. Their eyes, her instruments, their wagging tongues, her orchestra. Yet beneath the surface, beneath the arranged smiles and polite nods, there was a simmering discontent. I sensed it, a tremor in the facade. Even her most ardent followers began to tire of the excessive rules and the endless scrutiny. Each citation was a pebble in the shoe, uncomfortable but bearable. Still, they added up, and a quiet fury began to swell within me, a tide rising with each absurdity. It was becoming clear. Karen had declared war, and she wore bureaucracy as her armor. I stood on my porch one evening, the sky a canvas of bruised colors, watching as Karen did her rounds. Her meticulously coiffed hair and crisp pastel outfit were in stark contrast to the vibrant flag that fluttered defiantly above me. It was a silent standoff. Her eyes flicked up and met mine for a brief moment. A challenge, a promise of more to come. In that moment, I understood something vital. Karen thrived on fear, on the ability to bend others to her will. But fear was not my currency. I had no intention of bowing to her tyrannical reign or her petty decrees. My flag, a symbol of resilience, would continue to fly. My garden, a testament to untamed beauty, would remain my sanctuary. The battle lines were drawn, and though the war was waged with paperwork and whispers, I was ready. I would not be undone by the tyranny of a zealot with an axe to grind. No, Karen had underestimated me. I was more than the sum of her grievances. I was a quiet storm, biding my time. The morning light crept over the horizon, soft and unassuming, much like a secret. It was the kind of dawn that seemed to wash away the sins of the night, leaving only potential in its wake. I watched from my window as the world outside stirred to life, my eyes lingering on the flag that had become the epicenter of my unexpected conflict with Karen. She was the self-appointed overseer of our small neighborhood, the kind of person who found purpose in the minutiae of others' lives. Her latest crusade involved my porch flag, a vibrant testament to patriotism that she found excessive. It fluttered freely, its colors bold against the backdrop of my modest home, a silent rebellion against her dictates. The complaint she lodged had been laced with a peculiar blend of disdain and righteousness, manifesting in the form of a call to 911. Too patriotic, she'd claimed, as though such a thing existed. It was a laughable notion, but laughter had been the last thing on my mind. When the police arrived at my door, their expressions caught between apology and incredulity. That was yesterday. Today, armed with the resolve born from reflection, I prepared my subtle counter. Karen thrived on attention, on the symphony of chaos she orchestrated within the bounds of her dictatorial role on the HOA board. I, however, preferred quieter resistance. My plan was simple, yet layered with irony. I documented everything, every encounter, each stare that lingered a second too long. The camera, a silent witness perched unobtrusively by the window, captured the ballet of suburban life, a safety net for the truth amidst the web of Karen's embellishments. Her visits had become predictable, a ritual of sorts. I could almost hear the click of her heels on the concrete as she approached, her silhouette a harbinger of discontent. Each step was deliberate, as if she were ensuring the earth knew she was there, marking her territory. But I was ready. When she arrived this time, there was a shift in the air, a tangible tension that clung to the space between us like fog. Her eyes flicked to the flag, then back to me, a challenge unspoken yet understood. She expected compliance, a bowing of the head to her self-proclaimed authority. Instead, I offered her a serenity that seemed to unsettle her, an unwavering calm like the eye of a storm. As she launched into her prepared diatribe, I listened with measured patience. Her words were rehearsed, dripping with the condescension of someone who believed themselves above reproach. I noted the cadence of her voice, the way her lips curled with each syllable. Details for the record. Then came the moment, a pivot in our silent battle. My hand found its way to the phone in my pocket, the recordings ready and waiting. With a soft click, I set the device on the table between us, its presence unassuming yet potent. Her monologue faltered, confusion fleeting across her face before indignation set back in. This was not the reaction she anticipated. The power dynamic shifted subtly, the scales tipping in favor of reality over narrative, an irony not lost on either of us. It was then I allowed myself one line, a quiet utterance holding the weight of all I'd collected. Words spoken softly, yet resonating with the authority of truth. Documentation can be quite revealing. Karen's expression, a tapestry of emotions now frayed at the edges, said more than words ever could. My subtle counter had landed, not with a bang, but with the quiet finality of a lock clicking into place. In the silence that followed, I sensed a change. Perhaps not in her, but within the narrative she'd constructed around my simple flag. A narrative now punctured by the steady march of truth. As she turned to leave, her footsteps less certain, I watched the flag flutter once more, its presence a testament to quiet defiance, and perhaps my own kind of patriotism. The day after the police visit, the morning light seemed sharper, cutting through the mist that hung low over our cul-de-sac. Everything seemed to shimmer with a peculiar clarity. I watched through the window as dew sparkled on neatly trimmed lawns, a serene contrast to the turmoil Karen seemed intent on sowing. Karen, with her rigid posture, had become a storm in our community, gusting through with unwarranted authority and a remarkable lack of self-awareness. Her latest assault, the call to 911 over my flag, had been audacious, even for her. A flag too patriotic, she had claimed, as if such a thing existed in this patch of suburbia. But Karen's battles were less about flags and more about control. She craved the power to dictate the lives of others, to mold the world into her own restrictive image. In the quiet of my living room, I scanned the HOA bylaws. They were a collection of rules wrapped in vague language, offering the illusion of order while leaving room for interpretation. The flag policy, amusingly ambiguous, offered no ammunition for Karen's crusade. I smiled to myself, the irony hanging in the air like a gentle chime. Revenge, I decided, need not be loud. It need not be chaotic or vengeful in the traditional sense. The most potent form of revenge, I mused, was simply setting things right in a way that left the opposition flailing. I reached for my phone, fingers dancing over the screen, as I drafted a carefully worded email to the HOA board. No anger, no accusations, just facts laid bare with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. I described the incident with the flag, highlighting Karen's overreach and the absurdity of her complaint. I pointed out the bylaws, emphasizing how they supported my actions, not hers. And finally, I suggested a review of her position on the board. A gentle nudge, really, towards the inevitable conclusion. For days, there was silence. Karen, conspicuously absent from her usual patrols, had no doubt received word of my correspondence. The neighborhood buzzed with the quiet hum of speculation, whispers drifting like autumn leaves between houses. I felt their curiosity, their anticipation, but I shared nothing. The best stories, after all, are those that unfold in their own time. Then, one Sunday morning, the HOA meeting arrived. Faces turned with expectant eyes as I entered the community hall, a room filled with the scent of fresh coffee and the rustle of whispered conversations. The board took their places, and I noticed Karen among them, her expression an impenetrable fortress. She was a teetering empire, one gust away from collapse. The meeting proceeded with the usual tedium, minutes dragging over trivial matters until, finally, my letter came to the fore. The board, predictably pragmatic, discussed the merits of Karen's actions. Voices rose, passionate yet controlled, weaving through the room like an intricate dance of civility and conflict. As the discussion reached its crescendo, the air vibrated with a tension so palpable it felt like a living entity. The board's decision was swift and inevitable, delivered with all the ceremony of a gavel stroke. Apologies were issued on behalf of the HOA, a promise to reconsider Karen's position implicit in their measured tones. Karen left the meeting, her steps brisk and silent, the weight of her own actions trailing like a shadow. There was no confrontation, no dramatic outburst, just the quiet unraveling of a tyrant's reign. Outside, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a golden glow, the flag on my porch fluttered in the breeze. Its colors were vibrant and unapologetic, a testament to resilience and quiet victory. And in that moment I realized that sometimes the most profound revenge is simply living freely, undeterred by the trivialities others insist on imposing. The sun rose quietly the morning after the meeting, painting the sky a soft pink and orange, like the gentle unfurling of a dawn flag. I stood on my porch, the very spot that had become a battleground of sorts, feeling the cool wood under my bare feet. The flag hung there, unassuming, flapping gently in the morning breeze. It was just fabric, really, but it had somehow become more in the eyes of Karen, a symbol of defiance, perhaps, or just a convenient scapegoat for her tyranny. Neighbors trickled out of their houses, nodding good morning as they passed. Their eyes flicked back to the flag, then to me, a silent acknowledgement of the spectacle that had been our lives these past weeks. We all shared the same unspoken sentiment. It had to end. Not with a bang, but with the quiet whisper of resolve. The night before, the meeting had been a theater of truths. Karen's voice, usually sharp as a broken glass, had wavered, then cracked. Her arguments, once a fortress, crumbled under the weight of collective clarity. Her eyes avoided mine, darting instead to the faces of those she once commanded. There was power in silence, in the unified decision to no longer indulge her whims. My thoughts drifted back to the events, the absurdity of the police arriving about a flag. The irony was not lost on anyone. A neighborhood conflated into chaos over what should have been the simplest expression of freedom. Yet, in the chaos, clarity had emerged. As the meeting wore on, voices previously hushed found their strength. Stories of other grievances, of fences too high or gardens too wild, emerged like long-buried relics. Each tale was a thread in the intricate tapestry of discontent woven over the years. The realization spread among us, slow and sure, like dawn breaking over the horizon. We were not alone. The board, sensing the shifting tides, finally spoke with a resolve matching the community's need for change. It was decided, calmly and with a collective exhale, to review Karen's role, her dominance reduced to a mere whisper in the grand scheme of neighborhood democracy. Even she knew it was time to fade into the background, her reign reduced to a footnote. As the sun climbed higher, the street was bathed in golden light. My flag swayed gently, as if nodding in approval of the newfound peace. It wasn't about the flag anymore, but what it represented, a reminder of our shared values, our common bonds. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself smiling, not out of victory, but out of relief. The neighborhood felt different now, lighter, as if a storm had passed and left the air crisp and alive. Karen, once the storm, was now just part of the scenery, a memory of lessons learned. There was beauty in this resolution, in the way we came together to untangle the knots she had tied. It was a reminder that even the smallest ripples could reshape the surface of our lives, that we all had a part to play in the story of our community. The flag fluttered, catching the sun, a beacon of the ordinary turned extraordinary. This was our neighborhood, and now it felt like home.